one for?
He told me that.
And then really those three that are sitting under the big speakers, I mean, if you don't have an audience, you could probably turn those big speakers off because they each have a speaker on their mics.
Oh, really?
And that will solve, yeah, each mic has its own speaker.
Okay, yeah. How do we turn these off?
So he landed up there, and nobody ever knew it. I mean, he was looking at a picture that somebody else had a aircraft. You can see it at distance. You can see this. See, I got
Are we ready?
Well, as soon as you hear it say recording beginning.
Well, and I'll walk in there and make sure YouTube's working.
This conference will now be recorded.
It doesn't automatically.
Before we start, I brought some non-homemade cookies.
Delicious cookies. Delicious.
Now instead of like baking in the oven, they count.
That's making them, yes. That's right. If I opened the can and put it on the stove, I made it.
Yeah. That's right. Prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm waiting for him.
Oh.
We're ready.
Oh, you're ready? Okay. I call to order a Hazlet Charter Commission meeting today, Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026, at 7 p.m., and we do have a quorum present. If you will bow with me for our invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all your many blessings and the many blessings you have brought to our city, Hazlet. Help and guide each one of us through this process, and we thank you for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen. We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we do not have anyone for participation. No one is sitting in the chamber. Is anybody online that would like to speak?
Amen.
Okay, then we will go to agenda item 4, the consent agenda. Are there any questions, any corrections? I do have a correction on it. On the subcommittee for the form of government, I think you had me as one of the committee members, and it is Kyle.
And what is the name of the subcommittee?
Form of government, the form of government.
And it's Kyle.
Clark is the member. I'm not a member of that subcommittee.
There's another correction under number 5, and this was my fault, Katrina, when I sent you the email. I called it Article 8 elections, but the document is actually Article 7.
Okay, so in the minutes, we need to correct exactly where?
5B, yes.
And,
It should be Article 7 elections, not Article 8.
oh, yes, I saw you had two things and I wasn't sure which.
Yeah, that was because that was the name of the file, not the name of the document. I got exuberant. Thank you.
Approved with the corrections if you would like.
I know, so,
Yeah, I'm good.
okay. Is there anybody else? All right, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am. I move that we proceed with the minutes as stated, with the corrections as stated during this meeting.
Okay, Martin McCoy makes a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Patricia Parker seconds the motion. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 5A, discussion and review of the subcommittees. So the first one up, elections. Ms. King?
So, based on our conversation last time, I updated section 7.01 to reference the current Texas election code. So I added the word current. And in parenthetically, I said wherever Texas election code is referenced in Article 7, it will refer to the current election code. I left all the highlighted yellow section in there until the other subcommittees come back with their recommendations, and at that time, we'll marry these things up, leave in what we think is appropriate, and take out what we need to. And the other section, I corrected all the numbers that were out of order, and also in section 7.15 vacancies, I updated that to say that a qualified person, as defined in section 7.06, to serve the remainder of the term, because we had not defined qualified, so we referenced back to that section. And that's all I had in my notes from our discussion.
Anybody else? Anything to, okay, and I'm on that committee, and yeah, I think we're just waiting till we get what type of government, and we can proceed down that road.
Correct.
Any questions from anybody? Discussions? All right, form of government. Mr. Bullard.
I'm gonna defer to Chuck. Chuck had the packet.
If you want to read a slide, so, yeah, so, basically, we're just going to team last meeting, and I'll let you know, we're just, we had a lot of questions about, well, I didn't know where this one government did next, so we expanded on that thought, and this will. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Now that he's done speaking.
I'm done now, yeah, and that's all I got to say, all right.
So as a subcommittee, we met, and the intention was to focus on a lot of the questions that were asked last time when we gave a brief overview of the different options that we had. And some of the questions were, what are the job duties of these specific individuals in the different types of government?
Excuse me just a minute. I believe everybody has a packet.
Yes.
That's available, so if you want to pull that out while he's speaking, and make notes, questions or something, that'll probably help.
Yes.
Chuck put these all together for us, but
Chuck did a phenomenal job. But we met and went through all this information, made some changes, discussed a lot of it. I'm going to recommend that we kind of go through one of these options tonight, maybe two, depending on how much discussion. It'll fill an hour up pretty easily. So the goal of what we're going to read through here is to, if y'all have any questions or could point out items that maybe need to be addressed for each one of these or clarification, please speak up, because that's what we're hoping to do, is get a very clear description of what these responsibilities are. Yes, sir.
On your first page,
Yes, sir.
there's one thing that
Marty and I talked this over, and to me, it gives a little bit of, well, I don't think it's necessary, but we're, in the very first line, where you have strong mayor, weak council, and on the second line, weak mayor, strong council. I would like to see weak struck. I don't think it's necessary to convey what you're saying. You have a strong mayor and council,
Sure.
but just strike the word weak.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of a good point. Please keep in mind, these are very general descriptions of what this is. This is not an example of what we're doing or what anybody else specifically is doing. This is a general overview. So, as we look at the first option here, we'll start with the strong mayor. And the mayor's job description would be presides over city council meetings, maintains order during discussions, votes only to break ties, or has limited voting rights depending on charter interpretation. That means we can write in what we need to. Signs all official documents, resolutions, ordinances, and contracts on behalf of the city. Represents the city at ceremonial events, ribbon cuttings, and public functions. Provides limited administrative oversight by meeting periodically with the city administrator. Advocates for resident concerns but has no veto power and cannot unilaterally direct staff or departments. I want to bring up again that the verbiage is correct here. A city administrator would be partnered in a strong mayor form of government.
You're reading the general law.
He's doing general law.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, is that going to pertain to home rule? So are you suggesting,
I'm not, we're,
no, not suggesting, but, so that, should that say home rule? Because you can do whatever you want, but, yeah, because we're going from general law to home rule. So is this
Right.
how it is now?
And that's the intent.
Is this the current, what we have now?
our intention is to educate is all.
Okay, all right, so this is the general law.
This is general law, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I think the last bullet in that section is kind of interesting because it says advocates for resident concerns but has no veto power. However, under a general law, the mayor does have a right to bring back items for reconsideration.
Sure.
Which is kind of like a veto in a sense.
It's not.
Yeah,
But it's not technically a veto, so it's semantics.
Right.
sure.
But at the end, he can't, if the council rules over that, then he has no further recourse.
I missed a lot of that, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It
No,
was, it was noisy around me.
Sorry, I said it's really semantics,
Sure.
whether it's, bringing back for reconsideration. So technically, he can't finally veto it if the council overrides that again and
Right.
approves it. So it's just for clarification, he
Right.
can bring things back.
And we'll move more into the council's responsibility for this,
Okay.
for this general law type A as
Okay.
well.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So-
Technically, yes.
Let's not get hung up on this is what we are right now, because we are very much a hybrid of things. We don't follow this to a T. We're labeled as this, but this is not all exactly what we do and how we do. So we had these discussions last night, and it's rather confusing because we've morphed into our own hybrid, really. So, again, this is just a description in general of what would happen under this type of government. What a mayor would do most days is respond to resident emails, phone calls, and social media messages about local issues. Attend community events, neighborhood meetings, or civic gatherings. My microphone's flashing, is it all right? Okay. Review staff reports and prepare remarks for upcoming upcoming council meetings. Coordinate informally with the city administrator on urgent resident complaints. represent the city in meetings with outside agencies when the council is not involved. So that's just kind of a day in the life, right? What they cannot do, veto ordinances, resolutions, or budget items. Unilaterally direct department heads or staff, set the council agenda independently, hire or fire department heads, prepare or submit the official budget. Then for general law, city council as a body and individual members serves as the primary legislative body and exercises significant administrative oversight. Hires, supervises, evaluates, and can fire the city administrator at any time. Approves the annual budget, all contracts, expenditures, and major purchases. Appoints members to boards, commissions, or committees. Can directly direct staff and department heads on specific tasks or projects. Enacts ordinances, sets policy, and conducts investigations or hearings as needed. And then what a city council member does most days, review detailed staff reports and request additional information from the administrator. Return constituent phone calls and emails about traffic, zoning, or services. Contact the city administrator, department heads directly with questions or instructions. Prepare for upcoming council meetings or work sessions. Meet with developers, neighborhood groups, or business owners in the area. What they can't do, be blocked by a mayor veto. Have their individual directions to staff overruled by the mayor.
Hey, Kyle, may I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
So back at the top of the page, council, the second bullet point. So for the city administrator, he or she then, in terms of org chart, not to get off in the weeds, that city administrator would answer directly to the city council, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So the city council could either suspend or terminate the city administrator, even if the administrator has a contract. It'd be like firing a coach that has a contract, right? So the city council has clear authority over the administrator in this form, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
That's the way we understand it.
Yes, sir. And part of our discussion last meeting was about that cohesiveness, right, of the mayor and the administrator or a city manager,
Right.
whichever way, right? This way, the council kind of has all the control over that, right? If Joel and I don't get along and he's the mayor and they hire me as the city administrator, we're
Right.
setting up for failure.
Right, and I clearly understand there's a difference between a city administrator and a city manager, so I've got that down. So,
That was a big revelation for us. So I'm trying to emphasize the importance of the difference because I've seen that terminology crossed up quite often.
Right, right. Okay, thank you.
I actually have a question on what they cannot do.
Yeah.
The last bullet under that, isn't it state statute that the mayor is the budget officer?
I don't know what the
I don't know.
state statute is.
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that.
Down here.
I believe that's one of the statutory powers of a mayor, and you can't take away the statutory powers of the mayor. And one of them is overseeing the budget.
For a quick question, is this directly from the administrative code on duties outlined?
Yeah.
This is specifically.
This is off, right. It's off,
Okay.
internet, so right.
Okay.
So how we do it specifically here is probably a little bit different, I'd guess.
Okay.
And I also had a question on that last bullet point. Have their individual directions to the staff. Okay, this is the city council overruled by the mayor. My issue on that is that the council would give direction to the staff directly
According to this.
According to this, yes.
independently without going through the city administrator?
Let me add something to this. So this, and Chuck, correct me here, what we discussed last night, under the current general law type A, which we redacted off of what we passed out tonight, weak mayor, strong council. So this is an example, what we just covered, of a weak mayor, strong council.
we're not exactly that here in Hazlet. We've done things differently for a lot of reasons, and we can.
No, the main point was that the council could direct the staff
our
versus going
understanding.
through a city administrator.
Correct, that's our understanding of it.
Under a weak mayor, strong council.
Under this, not what we're doing here, this is just a general,
So, and I kind of want to circle back through this because when you think about the role of any elected official who serves on a council, they only have the authority to represent the body en masse in a public meeting. That's the Open Records Act. And it's, so when they're acting outside of a meeting, they're just like you and I as citizens. They have no authority to direct, to act, and represent the council as a whole. They only have authority when they're sitting in those seats in that capacity. So when and I'm looking for weak council description. I don't, on mine, it doesn't say
we
weak
took it off, we
council.
took it off.
Sorry?
We'd already taken that off.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm just trying to understand, because it's talking about they can direct department heads, they can direct the administrator, the council as a body in whole can, and it also says council members can. So what I would ask us to consider is, what is their role, where is their authority? Because, you know, I'm an old government teacher, and it's like there is no balance of power here. And there is no checks and balances.
Correct.
And I think, I'm a belief guy, so I believe regardless of what system we have, there needs to be checks and balances so that everyone plays nice and you don't get this with another person who's in a role and with a council. And what we see play out too often is who's going to have, you know, the power.
So let me jump in. So if you want to skip to the, when we get done with this, we'll skip to our hybrid. That's exactly what we've talked about. We've tried to, and I say it is whatever you guys want to include. We just put some ideas out for a balanced approach. There would be a relatively strong mayor, a relatively strong council, and a relatively strong city administrator / manager. They all kind of work with each other, and exactly what you just said, that both those checks and balances. The mayor can do certain things and can't, and vice versa. But I agree with you 100%. In government, people are going to take advantage of whatever we don't address. So we need to be very specific.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
No, we're just, like I said, we're learning as well. We're learning how this
I'll
process
say,
works.
the purpose of all this is to educate, not to recommend, not to say, we think this is the best, but we, as a whole, need to understand the different options and their good parts and bad parts and whatever else. But like we talked about last meeting, the citizens need to have a big input in this as well. And we need to be prepared to discuss with them where our minds are at, what we think is good, what we think is bad. And I've tried to really make an effort to not think about current situations, right? And us as a whole need to think about, well, what happens if we end up in a toxic situation? Is there going to be all kinds of gotchas in there, or are we going to be protected from that? So that's kind of where our mindset is at.
So just for clarification, this general law type A that you outlined now, you weren't trying to describe, or I shouldn't say that, were you trying to describe the situation you think we have right now?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Just in general, what the state says, under 5,000, this is.
Yeah,
what
this
you
is
generally-
only
So
a
you
general
took this from the
description.
local government code
Yeah.
to try to outline this?
Yes.
Okay,
And it's not everything, it's a compilation.
okay.
And again, keep in mind, as we go over this first section, this is an example of a weak mayor, strong council, general law type A.
Okay, thank you.
So this particular example does include a city administrator. And so their roles would be to manage day-to-day operations of all city departments under direction from both the mayor and the city council. Prepares operational reports, budget updates, and project status briefing on demand. Implements only those decisions explicitly approved by the full council. coordinates with department heads while responding to individual elected officials' requests, handles personnel purchasing and emergency operations as needed, as directed. So back to Mr. Rhodes's point, that individual word makes me nervous as well.
And I think emergency operations, I actually believe in the government code, the mayor actually is the one who would be responsible under emergency
Yeah,
situations.
that's one of the statutory powers of the mayor,
Okay.
that if there's an emergency arises, it comes. Yeah, you'll note, that was one of the things, when the flood happened, which is timely here, because it's the anniversary, I think, of the flood or their meeting, the legislators went for a visit down there, down in the hill country of the camp, Mistake. And then they had the mayor, well, the mayor was nowhere to be found, and nobody, it was his job to, report that, and that there's a disaster, and so everything was, but he was lacking, and so they had a city administrator, but it wasn't the city administrator's job, it was the mayor, and the mayor was held accountable for it. That's just something I noticed down there happening.
Right, and I think, I'm trying to remember, because it's been a while since I read it, but he may also be responsible for directing the development of an emergency or contingency plan as well.
Okay.
But I'd have to confirm that. I'm trying to remember if that was part of his duty.
Well, the department heads are responsible really for doing that, so whether that would come probably through the administrator or him, that would, that's something that
But
you would
then
talk about.
The mayor
But the department,
enforces it.
like the
Yeah.
fire department, they would report an emergency plan,
Okay.
or the public works.
And it's going to, and that emergency plan is going to be approved by council.
Interesting. So, city administrator, what they do most days, attend multiple meetings with department heads and respond to elected officials' inquiries, prepare custom reports or data for individual council members who request them, oversee daily operations while revising work based on council feedback, manage citizen complaints routed through the mayor or council. What they cannot do, refuse direct instructions from individual council members, make major policy decisions independently, ignore requests or changes demanded by the council or mayor. So essentially, whatever the mayor or council needs.
In that system on that last line, when you have a disagreement and you have different instructions from the mayor and the city council, how's that resolved?
I don't know, that's a good question.
I can't imagine you would have that scenario.
What?
But
Yeah,
this,
who does that?
but this is a strong council, weak mayor,
Yeah.
so I would think the council probably,
Council without weighing.
yeah, because I also, if it's a strong council, weak mayor, I would think the mayor couldn't have demands.
But is there a formal process for this that's written in the system?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Would be necessary where if there's a disagreement between the two parties, the
Yeah.
council has to hold a vote to override the mayor? Or there's some, I don't know what the system would be for that. There has to be a resolution to it.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm gonna make some notes here. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this is, standard Texas Home Rule, council manager. Mayor's job description: presides over all city council meetings and calls special meetings when needed. Votes as a full member of the council on all matters or tiebreaker only. Represents the city in ceremonial and official capacities. May present an annual State of the City address with policy recommendations. Has no veto power and no direct administrative control over staff or operations. And one thing we discussed last night, when we met last night, going over this, was votes as a full member of the council on all matters. That would require, obviously, an odd number of council members. So, as we currently sit today, we have 5 council members and 1 mayor, an even number. The mayor's the tiebreaker, right? So, just,
Would that be only if he was the tiebreaker?
You know, the idea, we just don't want, we don't want to fundamentally set up an idea that there's always going to be, 6 and 6, or 8 and 8, or eight people. We'd like to try to create an odd number as much as possible. And that's,
And
again,
that would
assuming.
include the mayor
Yeah,
in that number?
if we choose to go down that road, yes.
Okay,
right, just as an example, we have to keep in mind, if we go this route, or if we decide to choose that form, we have to keep in mind, we need an odd number.
thank you.
If he's a full member of the council.
If he's a full voting member, right?
But he doesn't have to be a full
No.
member if we choose
We choose not to.
Right. What they do most days, attend public events, speak at school or civic groups, and represent the city externally. Views managers' reports and prepares remarks for council meetings, and responds to resident inquiries and forward them to the city manager. What they cannot do, veto any ordinance, resolution, or budget item. Direct, we're just gonna say direct or discipline department heads or staff, set the council agenda unilaterally, nominate or remove the city manager, prepare or submit the official budget. And note at the bottom, if mayor votes, as a full member, we advise that the city council will set up with an even number of members so that we will avoid ties.
When you were looking at this, it says what they do most days, particularly the part that's represent the city externally. Did you see anything that defined that? Would they represent the city externally with other bodies, with other
Yeah,
entities?
It's more of a PR, I hate to be so crass, but it's more of a PR job, okay? It's like they're not involved in the day-to-day operations. They're gonna go to city council, they may or may not vote. They're not gonna be involved in a lot of the bigger decision-making.
Okay, and
at
maybe
least
that's
my interpretation.
that might be answered when I see what the council does.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking of things like, would they speak with people from COG or TechStop?
I would think so, yes. But again, they don't have,
But they're as a representative of the city.
right, but they don't have the power to like make unilateral decisions.
But they could get information, they could
Information,
meet
right.
with them. They could, okay. I was just curious what that meant, represent. Thank you.
Does that exclude city council members? The mayor should address TxDOT, the other agency?
I can't answer that question, but again, just way we talked about it, when we reviewed it, they'd be the face. They'd be the face of the council, but at the end of the day, they don't really have a whole lot of power.
As far as functioning with state agencies, what I would like to see is one voice. People get together and come to a consensus, but have one voice. Go to any agency, state, whoever we're dealing with, rather than having multiple inputs from individual members. I don't know how we word that to the restricted. It's the way I did business all my career, but anyway, that's a tough one.
No.
That's a tough one to nail down.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other discussion up to this point? Okay. City count,
Basically, Ron, you're saying is there's gonna be one chief and
That's
not so
right.
many Indians, right? Indian.
It could even be somebody else, but the point being, we speak with one voice. And maybe arguments before, but when we go out to any outside entity, we deal with it in that manner. That's what I see as ideal. It causes confusion otherwise. One point Mr. Michael Morris made in one of the meetings is just to that point, Long Bridge, Short Bridge, we pursued funding for the Long Bridge and engineering for the Short Bridge, but we don't battle internally one against the other. And if that gets down to state agencies, Rail Division, Bridge Division, and they start some conflict between them, Haslett loses. Right. We lose if that's the case.
Well, when I was on council, I did not have the authority to speak for the city. I could speak as an individual, but I didn't have the authority to speak for the city, and I believe that's true today. And whether the individuals are going out and speaking for the city, they can speak, I could speak on my behalf for what I thought, but I couldn't speak for the city.
No, you can hear it in city council meetings. They're going out as individuals dealing with state agencies.
Mm-hmm. So how,
Well, I guess you're going to have to define what speaking for the city is, because if they, I know that, but are they speaking on behalf of themselves or for the city? They cannot speak for the city.
They can't say I'm representing the city of Haslett.
They can't represent the city. They can say I'm this or that, but you can't represent speaking for the city as a whole. You can as an individual, as a resident, but yeah, you can't go out and speak for the city. So that, you would have to make that clear in whatever your ethics or things like that. It's very blurred right now, and so when you're thinking about your type of government, you would have to define that.
You know, the lines are not blurred, because the law is specific about you're acting outside of the scope of your authority. When you act outside of this public meeting, that's the only time you have the authority to act. So the law is real clear. It's just there's no accountability.
Nobody's policing it.
Yeah.
Nobody's
Well, that's because the city council has to police themselves.
Yeah.
And so you have to have where it comes, where Mike says checks and balances.
So let me follow up one thing, because in both of the forums that we've talked about thus far, it's talked about the budget process. And thus far, nowhere that I've seen does it delineate who is responsible for preparing the budget for consideration. And the law is specific that it's the council's responsibility to approve it, but I think preparing the budget for consideration and approval by the council is something that needs to be, regardless, it needs to be identified whose role that is.
And so as we move through this, the next
one does?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And so what I'm talking about, the statutory powers, as a general law A type government, it is the mayor's statutorial powers. But in a home rule, you can define, as long as it doesn't go against the
That's right.
state.
Well, in this one, the mayor does not, or the mayor cannot submit the official budget.
Correct.
So I guess when we get to the next part, whoever's doing it, you're going to say who does it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay. City council as a body and individual member job descriptions. Holds all legislative and policymaking powers as the governing body. Appoints the professional city manager by majority vote and can remove the manager. Adopts the annual budget, ordinances, and resolutions. Conducts investigations or performance reviews of the city manager. Strictly prohibited from interfering with administration or directing employees.
So this is the one problem we have with this form, is that we're essentially, in many ways, turning over the keys to this person that may or may not be a Haslett resident. We even talked about that before. Do we want them to try to be a Haslett resident? We're only 5,000 people in our city, not really a big pool, but we're just concerned about, we're kind of given a lot of control of this unelected, paid-for person, and it works for most cities. It seems, so it's not as if it doesn't work. It's just fundamentally, I have a hard time with it. I don't know.
Yeah, and that was part of our discussion last night, was like you just said, handing over the keys to a new Corvette to somebody that has no skin in the game.
Right,
Right.
yeah. They don't live here, they don't understand the
Yep.
comings and goings and they're all our
And while
concerns.
you're on that topic, no skin in the game, when I was on council and I went to several conferences and things, there were several speakers that spoke that were looking for city managers. And they said that they really need to live in that city because then they have skin in the game.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know,
And that's one of the things.
And so that's
right.
something that you might, when you're putting this, you might want to think about.
Well, we actually
Yeah.
talked about, we would recommend as a subcommittee to the body here, that if we decide to go that route, the city administrator should be a resident of Haslett.
Give them 3 months, whatever, to move, but, you know.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I've actually thought about
read
this,
that.
and I'll just throw some other thoughts out, because I prefer that person to have accountability because they live here. So that's my personal preference, but I also try to think in a broader sense. How difficult might it be, because it's a very specific kind of capability. How difficult might it be to find someone in our community with those qualifications? And that could be a real challenge.
Maybe.
So, I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Or it could be limiting, so that we wouldn't have as much opportunity to interview multiple, not us, but the council, to interview multiple people and make the best decision. So maybe would it be a kind of thing where we could write in our charter that you could have a broader search, but then within a period of time, they might become a resident?
And Chuck mentioned that just a few seconds ago. Give them a 3-month window
Or
a
even,
year.
even a year
Or a
window,
year, yeah.
because that would be
But
tough.
Reputation, somewhere you're gonna be
Yeah.
here.
So, and the other argument against it is, they live in a neighborhood here. How biased might they become? I'm just putting out the pros and cons. And how much could they be influenced by their environment now because they have buddies
Correct.
in the city? So it's a tricky question.
Sure. Good
You know?
point.
It's
And,
a good
and,
point, yeah.
yeah, and you might also have to consider, if you do require that, compensation for moving.
Yeah. No,
So-
it's, yeah. So I don't know. Like I said, it was just, as we're talking about this, we're thinking that just fundamentally, it's just horrible. We're giving the control to someone who probably lived 30 miles away, 40 miles away, has no idea what we're going through. Yeah.
That's what we have right now.
Yep.
You know, we've had that over the last, I mean,
Yes.
we're going on, for my family, 17 years here, and it's like, we've experienced that from city engineers and city managers. You know, and when you look at the salary we're paying for an administrator,
And benefits package.
yeah, I would believe that there would be an expectation.
Yeah.
And of course, you're gonna be influenced by your neighborhood. If you're making, you know, but I think it is important that they be part of the community.
Yeah.
Many of the jobs that I held, it was a condition of employment.
And I'm not arguing against that,
No, I
Mike.
know that. I know that.
I'm just, I like to think broadly and put all things on the table when we talk about how something should be addressed.
Yep.
So that's just
You know, it's
where I'm coming from.
That would be a clause
Yeah.
when we're hiring city administrator, that if you take this job, you are required to become a resident of Hazlet within 6 months, a
Yeah.
year. Whatever it be.
Yep.
You want the job or you don't.
That's right. And that would kind of, to me, would seem like it would eliminate the turnover
Yeah.
and the job hopping. Because my understanding, those city administrators go get on, work for a city for 2-3 years and then jump to another one.
Right.
Get it on their resume and jump to another one.
The other advantage I see with having a city manager or city administrator, whichever way we go, here is I'm assuming, obviously, they're not an elected official, so they wouldn't be impacted by any kind of a longevity clause. There wouldn't be any term limit on them. So they would also add continuity of experience through changing council, through changing mayors, if they're good.
That's right.
Well, it's all about finding the right person. If you have the wrong person and they live here, that's, you know, it's about the right person. I'd rather find the right person who lives 30 miles away than the wrong person. That's.
Why are you looking at me?
Preferences would be made to residents of Haslett first, like they would be a few extra points in the process because they live here. So we don't eliminate this really awesome guy that's got 3 kids in school and
Sure.
is interested and wants to drive.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing. I'm kind of like Max. I don't want this a superstar because they don't want to move their family here. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point, Todd.
So Chuck and Joel and Kyle, just one point, I've been involved in some of this in the past. A similar situation could be, if you look at some cities that aren't massively large, that have a regional airport or a larger size general aviation airport. Some of the things we're talking about here are very similar when you're hiring a director or manager for an airport.
Yep.
Right, you want the best candidate you can find. You keep in mind, is there somebody already in the community?
Right.
If not, they need to become a resident of the community. There's a time period T for them to relocate. Yeah. And there's also in there, to your point, Joel, if they want to job hop, right? Maybe they're in Texarkana and they want to end up in Austin or San Antonio down the road. If they leave before time period T, then they have to reimburse the municipality for the cost of their move. Now, when they move to another city, if they negotiate that on the backside for them to get reimbursed, that's up to them.
Right.
But what we're talking about here, I think there's some learnings for us as we continue to debate, and I love the wider discussion. We can learn from how some of the cities and towns in Texas have approached hiring a director or manager of an airport, because there's quite a bit of similarity. I think we could prevent going down too many rabbit holes and making some mistakes just from learnings in that area, just to put it on the table.
I agree.
I'd be happy to provide some feedback further if you need it offline when you meet.
It's great input. Okay, review what they do most days as an individual member of the council. Review city manager's professional report and recommendation, meet with constituents and discuss policy level concerns, prepare for city council meetings without contacting staff directly. What they cannot do: give orders to any employee or department head, interfere with daily administration of the city, contact staff directly for information or changes, strict no interference rule, and amend the budget after it is adopted without going through the manager. City manager's job description: serve as chief administrative officer with full operational authority, hires, supervises and fires all department heads and employees, prepares and submits an annual budget and capital improvement plan, enforces ordinance and directs all departments, operates under the strict no interference clause protecting staff from elected officials. What they do most days: meet with department heads to manage operations and projects, oversees budget execution in response to citizens' complaints through proper channels, prepare clear professional reports for the council. What they cannot do is make final policy decisions. That power belongs to the council. Ignore lawful direction from the full council. Be directed by the mayor or individual council members on operational matters.
So I have a question. I'm a questioner, sorry.
Good.
Shoot.
We were
So-
hoping for it.
Were you counting on me being a
Yes.
questioner?
We need to get her a title now.
Question queen. So what they cannot do, I find this very interesting. where it says contact staff directly for information or changes. So if the city manager is hired and overseen by the council, where do they get feedback for how they're performing as a manager of the staff if they can't go to the staff for feedback?
What we're trying to, what this model sets up is we don't want to have this same employee having 5 bosses or 6 bosses, whatever, okay? How you doing? How you doing? You're not doing this right. And you're getting conflicting viewpoints, and then their actual manager, the city manager, doesn't know what they're doing.
Well, hang on. That question you asked is
On the next page.
regarded to city council,
Oh,
not the city manager. The city council cannot contact staff directly for
no,
information.
that's right, I understood that. But
No.
the city council is
Needs feedback. I
overseeing
understand.
the performance
Right.
of the city manager. So how do they know how the city manager is performing
I see. You're including
if
the
they
city
can't
manager
get
as staff.
feedback from the people that he manages?
Well, I
We
mean,
used to call it a 360 evaluation kind of process. So we'd have to have some provision where, under certain circumstances, I would think, the council can, the full council can, yeah, not individual council members, good point, Matt. But they can solicit,
And-
especially for performance review time.
so
Right.
let's step back on that because I don't agree with you on this. Because you look at school districts, your school boards, they don't contact the principals to get evaluation on superintendents, corporations. They don't send memos to department heads and employees asking them to rate. The evaluation is on the performance of the job, the culture, the climate, the bottom line, and how the interactions that they have. And I think having objective criteria that you hold the city manager accountable for, or city administrator, they've got a job description and they're evaluating them based upon the outlined objectives. But, I mean, you're creating, junior high girl stuff by direct, and I don't mean, you're creating a process to, give me the dirt, give me, and you don't have knowledge that, I had to get on to Todd because he's made inappropriate comments, so I've written him up. You don't get to see his personnel file. But that's part of, so when you as a board member or council reach out, well, hey, Todd, what kind of job do you think Mike does? Well, he's a sorry dog. So it's just, I think there needs to be an outline process.
I'm drawing from my experience in my industry,
Yeah.
because we always had what we called 360 reviews. And it wasn't just it went out in general anonymously, and you gathered feedback. And I just think there has to be some way for the council to objectively evaluate a city manager's role, because that's part of the check and balances.
Okay, I think you could have an evaluation from the staff of the city manager, anonymous evaluation, just like, teaching, like we just did at the academy the other day. Yeah, well, it was this week, where the students had to evaluate. It was anonymous, but they evaluated the teachers, and then the staff looked at that and how they need to improve the teachers. So it would be, and then the administrators get evaluated by the superintendent and so forth. So, I think you could have an anonymous, because how would they know? If there wasn't any kind of,
When you have a department, when you have a city staff the size of what we have in Haslett, I mean, how many people are we talking about? 25 to 50 at the most?
no,
it's
probably
much lower.
40, 50, I mean, with the,
Yeah.
with the fire department? Oh, yeah, it's up there.
Yeah.
But
Katrina?
I just think there should be
50.
50.
That's
me,
including the
to
public
me-
works and
Yeah, you could
everybody.
just
It goes
have
to
an
the balance.
anonymous,
It goes to the balance of power. That's what I'm thinking of. And I just picked it up because it was the wording was strict no interference rule. And I understand that on day-to-day operations, but at some point, we have to think about how is a city manager evaluated by a city council.
Right.
How do we know he's doing his job?
I think that's a fair question.
They conducted a survey exactly like that, and it had quite an impact. A lot of grumbling, complaining, and got straightened out by doing an anonymous survey of employees on how the supervision was, how well a job they were doing. And with 50 people, if we had a smaller group, I would probably not be in favor of that. Everybody's going to know anyway, but with 50 people, I think you could conduct a survey like that and have, with 50 people, I think you're going to get a fairly accurate assessment rather.
You can be careful the kinds of, I mean, obviously, we're getting into the weeds.
Well,
But
and
you
you
can
could
be
have,
careful the kinds of questions you ask that would be
Right.
generalized, so that it wouldn't pinpoint to a
and you
specific
could have an
department.
outside company conducting it. They would be,
Yeah.
and then they could do the reporting.
That is a good idea, but it's, to me, it's a simple thing. Put that in there once a year. We'll have an evaluation.
I just know it worked really well in my experience. And as a leader, I actually wanted that feedback. I think a good leader would want to know how they're performing, because it would give you
I'm just
opportunity.
talking about the methodology of how we do it. There definitely needs to be an annual review.
And again, every position depends on the individual.
Right.
Everything we talk about
And I
boils
only
down.
raised it because it was the strict no interference rule, and we'd have to think about
Yeah, and.
when you could actually,
And I think the
have that
staff has to have a voice, everybody needs to have a voice. And I think in the past, maybe that didn't happen. As we have gotten bigger and more staff, you know, you have to feel like somebody's listening someplace, that you have an opportunity to express. I mean, you're always going to have negative, and you're always going to have
Believe me,
positive.
that proved
you know.
true in my experience, exactly what Marilyn's saying. I would highly suggest it.
Wouldn't this model basically be the exact same concept of a CEO overseen by a board? My sister's director of tourism in the city. She has a tourism board. She only answers to the tourism board. They do not touch the employees. They don't touch the hiring. They don't touch the budget. She speaks to them, I think, biannually. Wouldn't it be up to our council to decide how they want to evaluate that person's job performance? Do we have to write it into this? Or do they just basically agree as a council to conduct a survey?
Think of that, how that would work right now.
Well, I understand how it would work, but I mean, it may vary as the council changes, is how they assess that. But I don't know whether we should write it here, or whether that becomes something they do as a council. Because it's the only place they can conduct that questioning would be in a meeting. They can't individually reach out to the members of the staff.
no, that's right. They
Right,
couldn't do it
so
individually.
They would have to say, hey, we're going, or do we write it in to say the council will conduct an annual survey of the performance, so we write it into the exact.
Right.
I thi-
Something to that
How
effect.
did they survey?
Yeah,
How would the council survey?
I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
I'm saying ask the employees, right down to the very bottom.
Yeah.
That-
You would want to
You'll
write
be,
into the
they'd
home
probably
rule
be amazed
system.
what you can learn in a detailed one. The ones that were conducted where I worked were fairly detailed and had room for.
So you would want to mandate the council as part of our home rule system, conduct this annual survey, review of the city manager, the city administrator, whatever they.
And they can evaluate it as they see fit.
Well, and we can write this charter based on our input and citizens' input as vague or as detailed as we want.
That's what I'm asking, how much do we want to leave to the council, how much do we want to really write out how this process?
Believe me, I'm for simplicity. I think we all agreed initially on our initial meeting, try to be as simple as possible. But these are not just simple things. Some of them are pretty straightforward, but some of them, to me, the more I dig, the more questions I have.
I just think, there has to be some evaluation, how it's done. I think we have to write in that we expect an evaluation to be done, because We want that balance of power, and that's the only way you're going to get it.
Well, I think
And it
you,
would probably make the employees more comfortable if it is an outside company that's doing the evaluation.
And absolutely anonymous, where they don't feel like
Right.
it.
Right.
and I think you could write in here that the annual review needs to be completed, and then a couple of bullet points that we feel like are requirements, non-negotiables, right? And then leave the rest to what they want to add or take away as the body changes. That's what I do with some of my team members when I require them to have team meetings, and they have to talk about the budget, have to talk about a safety item, and then whatever else they want to talk about.
And it would be tied to their job description.
Correct.
That way, yeah, and
Yeah, in fact, their job description could actually inform the survey questions.
Can we skip to the hybrid, because we've already been doing this for like almost an hour, so. I don't
Sure.
know.
Well,
We're
either
totally going
that,
down this.
either that, Chuck, or we can stop here,
Yeah, however you guys want to do it, we just,
pick this back up at the next meeting and move on through the agenda. It's up to y'all.
Yeah, we could easily take the whole meeting.
Yeah, oh yeah, we could keep going and
For,
Oh, there's four, so we're halfway through, so do we want to go
I
forward
won't ask that many
then?
more questions.
Yeah, okay, so we
But we
will
want the
continue
questions.
this on the,
Well, or do you want to jump to the hybrid?
or do you want to jump to the higher, it's up to you.
it's really up to you guys, because we talk about it,
We can like
what do we have
briefly,
left on the agenda?
let's stay.
let's focus on this, okay.
Let's finish
One, okay, all right.
Okay,
Okay,
skip over the hybrid then.
we'll keep moving.
We're in that.
Okay, the next one is a mayor, council, strong mayor. Mayor's job description: serves as full chief executive officer and head of city government. Prepares and submits an annual budget and capital improvement plan. Marilyn, to your question earlier. Up Marilyn. Joette, you're sitting right here. Appoints and removes all department heads and employees. Exercises veto power over any ordinance or budget item. Sets the council agenda and presides over meetings with full voting rights. What they do most days: direct department heads on daily priorities and major projects, reviews contracts, grants, and development proposals, meet with residents, developers, and outside agencies on high-priority issues. What they cannot do: be overruled on administrative matters by the council, except by supermajority veto override. Have the council direct staff or interfere in operations. And there's a typo in the note below that, says if mayor votes as a full member, we advise city council be set up with an even number, and that should say odd number of members so that we avoid ties.
Not with a hybrid.
Yeah, well, yeah, this will,
Oh.
we'll get.
Say it again, Stephanie?
Where I kept going.
You have to have an odd number. How do we want to say it? We want an odd number of people who are voting. That's where, that's where.
That's right.
You want odd. The mayor's a vote, you gotta have it odd.
But it's gotta be an odd number.
If he's full vote, it has to be odd.
If the mayor votes as a full member, we advise the council set up. The math ain't mathin'.
So
Would
that
he still be the
would that-
tiebreaker? Would he have the authority of a
We
tiebreaker
wouldn't have
then?
a tie,
You'd never have a tie.
You
duh.
couldn't.
unless you didn't have a quorum. Unless you didn't have a quorum,
Well, then you couldn't take a vote.
then you couldn't take a vote.
So
Well,
Going back
your
then to
quorum,
number two,
okay, your
is
quorum
that
though would have to be odd.
going to be even also then?
Your
If you-
quorum has to be odd.
That's right.
So you'd have, if you had 7, then
Anytime
you'd have
there's-
to have a quorum of 5.
Anytime there's a vote being
Correct.
taken, there would have to be an
You are
odd
correct.
number.
Thank you.
That's very good.
Okay, city council job description. Sir,
percent is that?
serves solely as a legislative and oversight body. Confirms only key mayor appointments, ergo police chief, city attorney. Overrides mayor vetoes by supermajority, 2/3 to 3/4. Reviews and adopts the mayor's proposed budget with limited amendment power. Cannot direct staff or interfere with administration. What they do most days, individual member, reviews mayor's proposals and reports, meet with constituents, prepare for legislative votes. What the city council cannot do, direct any employee or department head, interfere with the mayor's administration of the city, hire or fire department heads except through confirmation of key roles, and set city council agenda or control meeting topics.
Yeah, I know. Houston's a city that you would know, that it still has that. There's not a whole lot of cities that allow that.
Okay, I do have a question on this then. Then the city council doesn't approve the secretary, the city secretary, or the financial officer? The mayor would have complete control, because right now, you know, this city council approves the city secretary and the financial officer.
I don't know the answer to that question. I just know they have very little power.
Mike, that'd be a question for you, sir.
I mean, under what I'm reading, I'm assuming that the mayor would have the authority to hire the city, did you say city administrator?
No,
City
financial, city secretary and financial.
Yeah, that would be the mayor.
officer.
That would be the mayor. City administrator would be, you know, it talks about recommendation. I love parts of all of them. And sorry, that's not the question. That's not the question. But it's like, you know, there needs, the city council is ultimately responsible for policy and direction, hiring of key positions, not all positions.
Yeah, usually it's the city secretary, the financial director, and the city engineer. They have to approve those, I think.
Is that,
Those three.
when
And
you
it-
think about it that way, is that a good, that's a good balance, if you think about a balance
Yeah.
of power?
Right.
Sure.
That's how it is now.
And it does say, except through confirmation of key roles. Okay, any other discussion? Okay. City manager, administrator job description. Position does not exist or is limited to an optional assistant appointed by and reporting solely to the mayor. All executive and administrative functions are handled directly by the mayor and department heads. City manager, administrator, what they can do. Perform tasks specifically delegated by the mayor if the optional assistant position exists. What they cannot do, report or take direction from the council, exercise independent executive authority. The position essentially does not exist as a true manager role. And the fourth one. Hybrid council manager with enhanced mayor powers, recommended. Mayor's job description, serves as chief elected leader and policy director. Nominates city manager, council confirms, and can recommend removal. Exercises veto power over ordinance or budget items, override by 2/3 or 3/4. Controls or co-controls council agenda and submits policy priorities. Has full voting rights and presides over meeting.
So the balance on this one is the mayor and the city manager are supposed to be, ahead of time should be able to get along. That's the theory. Maybe you're gonna hire a person you think's gonna work well with you, then it doesn't always work. That's the theory. and the city council can say, yeah, we don't, that's your buddy, that's your fishing buddy, no, find someone else. Or they can say, yeah, it's a great idea.
Good point. What they do most days, meet with, did you have something, Joy?
Who actually hires them? He nominates them. Does the
And
council,
council's
so
gonna hire
council
them.
confirms
Council's
they
gonna hire-
actually
yes,
hire them?
Correct.
Are you going to talk about, okay, I'll wait.
Okay, thank you.
He's jumping ahead.
What they do most days, meet with city managers, set priorities, and review progress on key projects, engage residents and stakeholders on growth and quality of life issues, prepare policy goals, and place items on council agenda. What they cannot do, directly hire or fire department heads. Manager does this. Gives orders directly to staff, must go through manager. Unilaterally change the adopted budget. And again, the note at the bottom should say odd.
It should say odd.
What's interesting, and maybe you're going to speak to this when you get to the council, but you know how in the other one, there were things about working with outside groups, outside parties? I don't see that here at all. Is that going to be council, or is that going to be mayor? In
Address
this,
it.
or city
We
manager?
didn't address it, that's a good point.
I'm sorry?
We didn't address it, I'm sorry, we didn't even think about it, that's a good point. I would think it's the mayor, by assumption, I would think it's the mayor, but we didn't write it down.
Okay, but that would be something
That's
we,
something to think about, yes.
To her point, whenever there's a negotiation, let's just say with a contract for the city waste disposal, does the mayor in this model conduct that negotiation with the city manager sitting by his side, or is the council involved in that, and they just approve the contract, the mayor negotiates? Who actually represents the city in that negotiation?
The way, you guys tell me to jump in, my understanding would be that that's why you have a manager. He or she does all that.
And they represent the city's voice in that?
In those particular things,
Then
we,
it goes to the council for approval.
but to address this issue though, that we're not gonna send the city manager over as the cog, we're not gonna send the city manager to talk to, industry or whatever, that's gonna be the mayor, and in my viewpoint.
could be, could not, I mean, it depends how you write it, I guess.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct,
But it's something we have to think about.
right.
Sure.
Again, it goes to Ron's point about one voice.
Mm-hmm.
I think ideally it would
And-
be the mayor.
Plus, you're looking at their experience too.
Sorry, say again?
Based on their experience, they might be okay talking to COD or TxDOT.
Well, right, but it's kind of around what's going on earlier, though. I really like the idea that we have one voice, and
Yes.
I really don't know, I keep thinking about our current situation, if we had this kind of discord going on, how would you get that one voice, okay? I guess you could say the official Hazlet, word is from the mayor, no matter what else you're hearing. But I'd like to find a way we could address what's going on now, maybe kind of put some clamps on some of that. Maybe we can't, I don't know.
Well, I think what we have to do is learn from all the situations that anyone has experienced, whether it be here or even in any other cities. Think about how do we structure something so we get the best results.
Yeah. And,
So-
and, go ahead, Stephanie.
No, could you not say, like, could we write that in so the mayor will go to entities and represent our city unless he designates,
Yeah, I like that.
an
He's number two.
individual,
Yeah.
if he can't go, or it's somebody that we trust that they will represent what we as a city are trying to go represent or find out or get information on.
And I want to pause right here. I think this is a good time to bring up something we kicked around last night. Just in this hour and 13 minutes we've been talking, just look at the discussion we've had over these types of forms of government. I don't want us to get in a rush to do this. I don't want to see us get in a hurry to do this. I don't think we need to set any kind of timeline or, if we do, that's great. If we get this done by August and get this on the November ballot, outstanding. But at the same time, I want to make sure we've covered all bases, done everything we can, and thought of every possible scenario. Just tonight, we've had discussion on just about every topic. So I don't want us to get hung up on trying to get this thing done in a hurry, but get it done thoroughly and properly, whether it takes another 2 months or another 8 months.
I really like,
I agree.
I
That's
really
my
like what you've
priority,
put
too.
together, so we have kind of ideas, so thank you for, kind of outlining this, and I think we can take perhaps an assignment for all of us to go away and look at this and come back with our questions or recommendations or things
Yep.
we think might be helpful in any of these models,
Yep.
and use that next time we meet to try to
Absolutely.
kind of funnel this into
And
the
even
direction
though,
we want to go,
even though we've
to
set
take
up
to the people.
a subcommittee on this, I said at the first meeting, not one of us is as smart as all of us. So if everybody, even though we know we're working on this as a subcommittee, I would like the input for everybody to be looking at possible ideas and,
Well,
It's not one specific one.
yeah, it's just search it and,
Just Google that type and you can kind of get, okay.
Well, and I'm thinking of like Marty and Ron that are going to talk about how we take things to the public. If you think about the discussion we're having and the clarifications we need, can you imagine going to a public meeting and trying
You're
to
right.
present something? So we have to be pretty clear,
Yep.
if we're going to give people options for them as well
Mm-hmm.
to think about.
Very clear. We'll get to that later. We're gonna have to be
That's a good
incredibly
point.
clear,
Very thorough,
and
answer every question.
we're gonna have to make sure we use Hooked on Phonics in advance, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
good point, Marty, good point.
Oh, my.
Okay,
Anyway,
city
just an
council.
observation.
City council job description. Serves as legislative and policy setting body. Confirms the mayor's nominee for city manager and can remove the manager. Overrides mayor vetoes by supermajority, 2/3 to 3/4. Adopts final budget but cannot add major new spending without mayor manager recommendation. Do you have something, Stephanie? Enforces a strict no interference clause. What they do most days is an individual member, reviews professional reports from the city manager, meet with constituents and focus on legislative policy matters. What they cannot do, interfere with administration or give orders to any employee, strict no interference clause. Contact department heads or staff directly. Add major new spending items without mayor manager recommendation, and set the city council agenda independently. And the last page, city manager job description. Runs daily operation as professional chief administrative officer, hires, fires department heads, and prepares detailed budget, executes mayor's high-level policy priorities while protected by the strict no interference clause, presents professional analysis and recommendations to the council. What they do most days, manage department heads and oversee project execution, prepares detailed reports and budget updates under the mayor's policy direction, shield staff from direct political pressure by elected officials. And what they cannot do, ignore the mayor's high-level policy direction, be directed operationally by individual council members or the mayor personally. No interference rule applies to everyone. Make final legislative or policy decision that belongs to the council. Marty.
May I ask a question, please?
Sir.
So, on the last page, second bullet point down, city manager job description, prepares the detailed budget, I get that point. Then on the previous page, second bullet point from the bottom, this is the city council job description. They can't add any major new spending items without the mayor manager recommendation, but it's still, correct me if I'm wrong, it's still the manager that's responsible for that budget, for preparing the budget and making sure that the municipality stays within budget. Is that correct?
I thought the mayor was the one who prepared the budget. I'm
Well, it
sorry.
says under the mayor's policy direction on the back page,
Yes, sir?
That might be a whole, the plan was that the mayor would set the budget, the manager would help him help them decide what the budget's gonna be. Council then either approve or disapprove. They can't be adding, oh, by the way, we also wanna add a sewer install or a bridge over the thing.
Okay.
They have to go then back to the mayor/manager and say, what do you guys think, add this. So, again, this is not perfect, I understand that. So,
Right.
yeah, but there may be a whole. The theory is to keep that tension, that there's not one person saying, I want that bridge. No, I don't. There has to be some cooperation.
Bottom, at the end of the day, the bottom line is, everybody has some sort of fiscal responsibility, correct? Whether it's the manager, the council, or the mayor, they all have some type of fiscal
I have to
responsibility.
figure out how to make you work with me on this. And if you don't work together, it's not gonna happen.
Gotcha,
Right.
okay.
Okay? It's a negative, but I don't know, if you guys have a better way to
Yeah.
approach it, it's fine. I just think start with a negative and then you guys
So
build
the-
a
That's
house.
great, okay.
So the council can't unilaterally go, okay, we want to add this to the budget without the approval
Without the approval
of the
recommendation.
manager, without the recommendation.
Right.
They can go to them and ask and see if they can get the recommendation, and then,
they can make their own recommendation.
Right.
Labeled as council manager, but this is, the description is more city administrator. 'Cause, I mean, city manager as the executive powers.
It's right in the middle because
Yeah.
it's more than administrator, but it's not a full manager, okay? I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It leans more toward a manager because you're giving so much more responsibility to that person.
It's a administrator.
It's a hybrid.
It's right. Because they-
also, if it's city manager, they have to have certain certifications and things to hold that title. So
Okay, so there's the answer.
you have to be careful.
So also,
They'll ask for more money.
I would
is
say
what it is.
yes.
Can I, go ahead.
under the city manager job description, the last bullet, where they make recommendations to the council, couldn't the city manager also make recommendations to the mayor?
Yeah,
I'm sure they could.
they should be, yes.
That's the collaboration.
So did you guys in this process, I like this. This really good job on this. The whole, to me, there's gonna, the real monkey wrench is who the mayor is. And there's gonna be such a wide variability in the skill sets. Like, Joette gets elected and every detail is done and the budget's done and it's done before it's due. I get elected, I'm down there, hanging out and talking to everybody, and the budget's not done, and the city manager's doing everything, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have different types of mayors. I like the flexibility of this, because it looks like the city manager could really step up and be really, really busy,
If needed.
if needed be.
Yes.
Or the mayor could really be a huge asset to the city manager to get the work done.
Absolutely.
So I think the other models really pigeonhole only one person, one type of person can be elected to mayor. We could elect a handshaking, completely inadequate organizer.
Right.
Or we could elect a meticulous, perfect organizer that wants to be involved in everything and still fits in our model.
Right.
I really like this. I think that.
I was, while we were talking about this, I always like to ask people, what's your takeaway? What's the thing that's bubbled to the surface as you've gone through the conversations and the research? And I wrote down, my realization is we need a professional leader, an administrator or manager who has the expertise in city governance, leadership, management to lead our community. And exactly what you said was I was thinking about is we're fortunate we have somebody who has some of those qualities, but not all of those qualities in a mayor position. And we had that previously. And I don't know that I was in favor or like, yeah, we need a city manager or administrator, but the conclusion for Mike is we need somebody who's got the skill set, the training to be a administrator, manager, knows the law, can manage and lead our government. And that's my takeaway. And it's kind of like, yeah, if you hired me, that wouldn't be my skill set.
And the city needs the continuity of that, no matter who
Yes.
is the mayor.
Yeah.
So it has to have continuity.
And it allows whoever the mayor is to focus on the real important issues. I'm not saying these aren't important things, but it's just day to day. You know, what we think, you know, who's going to look to the future when they're busy taking care of the city or the, you know, okay. So,
I don't know.
What I like about this last one is, too, it really does include the mayor in a lot of the responsibilities as well, and he is the elected official. So I just think, again, as we've all said, how do we organize this so that you have the right capabilities in place with the right balance of power between the mayor, a manager, the city council, or city administrator, whatever you want to call it, to get the job done and to work cohesively.
So all of our research has shown that the cities that are succeeding have done the minutia, the stuff we don't want to do. I don't want to do it. I don't want to dig down to even beyond what you want to do. Like, what are they going to say? What kind of survey? Who's the company? Okay, but that's unfortunately the cities that have gone to that, not quite that crazy level, but that level. That's the ones that don't have the problems. The people that are like, yeah, it's going to all work out. It doesn't work out. And there's all kinds of examples on both sides.
Yeah,
Well,
it
that's-
must be detailed and it must be defined.
Right.
Okay, well, I think we've covered it all. Are there any final comments on that? And then we can come back, we can all think about that, do what you said, investigate it a little bit further. Are there any comments?
No, thank you
Anything
for your
you wanna
patience. I realize
add?
this is a
Anybody? Kyle, Joe, anything you want to add?
I just have one comment. Thank you. This is great to give us a chance to digest this and think about it. And I think the subcommittee did a great job of delineating the different scenarios. So thank you.
Well, again, on that, Marty, we're blaming Chuck.
Teamwork, team effort.
Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all for the discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back and have more discussion, I'm sure, and questions. And do we want to take a break for 5 minutes, or we want to keep going? Just
There's
break?
cookies.
We take a break for 5 minutes. There's cookies Joette brought.
Okay. There you go. Because you're going to bring cookies. Okay. What have you done?
Yeah, when I saw my name on Okay, we will call the meeting back to order and continue. The next subcommittee is financial procedures. Who would like to speak on that? Mike? Financial, are you the subcommittee? Matt? Matt Hayes? I think we have, you might want to pull out this packet. We have a packet. Yeah, okay. Matt Hayes, we have a packet, financial procedures, assumptions.
Yeah, I can go through it.
Okay, thank you. Assumptions?
Assumptions of the
Oh, and let me say another thing. While we can be heard on the speakers to our audience that are listening online, Katrina has a hard time hearing us, especially the ones here that our backs are to who.
Yep, that one.
And so when we speak this row, Kyle and Stephanie, and pay attention. Speak loudly, even though you're in the mic, so Katrina can get it. Thank you.
Right, first off, we had to make an assumption right off the bat on what form of government, because, based on the form of government, it's going to change what the responsibilities are. So just for the sake of our effort, we went with the strong council, a city administrator, which, just based on the percentages on the cities that have that form. When we found the city of Justin had a really, really good financial section, and we took a lot of what they did and we made a lot of adjustments to it. We'll go through the whole thing. The financial procedures, one is defining the fiscal year, and we defined it, exactly like the regular form of government, from the first day of October to the last day of September of each year. And then for the budget preparation, budget preparation shall occur in accordance with the following. The city manager will prepare the budget annually, submit the proposed budget to this council in compliance with state law, be responsible for the administration of the budget after it's adopted, and keep city council advised of financial condition and future needs of the city, and make such recommendations as may seem fit. The budget, we lay just some of the things that we believe should be in the budget. The budget shall meet the state law requirements. The state law really spells out what a city budget is supposed to contain. It contains the following, but not limited to: a budget message that consists of an outline explaining the proposed financial policies for the city for the upcoming year, consolidated statement of anticipated receipts and proposed expenditures of all funds, taxes levied, tax collection from the previous fiscal year, an itemized budget by expenses by department, revenue and expense statement for all types of bonds. Other such information is being required by the city council, and then a capital investment plan.
I do have a question, Matt. Going back to the budget, the city manager shall prepare the budget annually. Does that also include with a financial officer? Would we want to put that in there, or does he just do it independently?
No.
Ultimately, he's responsible for preparing it, and he's getting input
And
from the budget
the input.
managers, from each department
Right.
manager, as well as the
Right.
financial.
And I have a question on B, where it's in compliance with state law, but does that mean the council approves the budget?
Yes. That's statutory.
Okay, so that's what compliance with state law implies. Okay.
And going on, section 8005, public record, the budget social report, and all supporting schedules will be filed with the city secretary and submitted to the city council. The budget shall be a public record, and a copy of the budget made available for any person upon request. And we go into a little more detail on that later.
Real quick, any person upon request or
Yeah,
any
we
citizen?
go into that a little bit later on in section 811.
Copy that.
Yeah. Section 806, notice of public hearing on the budget. At a meeting of the city council at which the budget is submitted, The city council shall determine the time and place of the public hearing on the budget. The city council shall cause a notice on the hearing, set forth the time, place, and date to be published as required by law. Most likely it'll be Katrina doing all that, but yeah. At a time and place set forth in the notice, or at a time and place as such a public hearing shall be from time to time to be adjourned. The city council shall hold a public hearing on the budget submitted, and all interested parties are given an opportunity to be heard for and against any item or amount of any item therein contained. So on the first day of, and we added this, the last line of this one, on the first day of October, a budget has not been approved. No other item or business shall be considered by the city council until a budget's passed. So if there's no budget on 1 October, they can't do anything until a budget's passed. So that way, it puts, we don't run into the problems we have with our federal government.
Do employees get paid?
Most likely, well, if there's no budget, right, if there's no budget, then people won't get paid because they don't have a budget. That's why no business can take place until they pass a budget.
Hey.
Kind of like Congress.
Right. So every spotlight will be shined directly on up here if there's no budget on October 1st. Probably. Right.
So I'm sure you're talking, yeah, you have Section 810 amending the budget. So you can have a budget, even if it's not perfect.
Right.
At least you can have your government continue. Okay.
Right, and we talked a little bit more in the next, in section 7 as well. Proceeding and adopting a budget. After a public hearing, the city council shall analyze the budget, make any additions or deletions they feel appropriate, and shall, prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year, adopt the budget by affirmative vote of the majority of the full membership of the city council. Should the city council make no final action on or prior to such a day, the current balance shall be enforced on a month-to-month basis until the new budget's adopted. So that way, that provision allows, for the city to still operate
So
on a month-to-month basis.
So question. So we have Section 8.5 public record. When do they get filed? Do they get filed when it's before the public hearing? Do they get filed after it's adopted? When is it filed?
I'm not sure if there's a requirement for them to file before or once it's complete. What was that? Okay.
And Matt, real quick, back to section 8.06. That last sentence y'all added to that, I think should be highlighted and exclamation pointed.
Yeah, underlined.
Underlined,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, in red.
That's funny.
I guess I have a question. So when a budget comes up, the council has already met on it. They've gone through it in minute detail. And yet there are major discussions, like how do you that should have already been taken care of before it's presented, that you're adding and deleting and, not understanding the budget when you have already discussed it. So how do you eliminate not coming prepared? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
To me, when you come for the budget, when I was on council, we met, talked about it, made changes, what we wanted to do, had, had workshops and people could come to that. It was open session. And by the time it came to the council, everybody was in agreement. We approved the budget. And I noticed that this last time, there was chaos.
right.
And so, to me, that doesn't show that the city is functioning very well. That should have already been taken care of. The council people should have all been prepared and known what to say up here in front of the public. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And so, how
Unless
do
you're
we
doing it for theatrics and.
well, how do we prohibit, how do we somehow put that in there that it comes before when it has been,
Well, I mean.
established. Well, you know what
when
I'm
you
talking about,
think-
Mike?
When you think about the budget process, you do have workshops where the prepared budget comes to you and you kind of go over it line item for review and discuss everything, salary packages. And then you have a public hearing where anybody can come.
Correct.
And then you vote. But
I don't think if the council has already done their homework and been through those workshops, they should be the ones, up there debating it. When they've already gone through that process.
It's
Do you-
not unique to the budget.
well, they also have to adopt the tax rate.
Right. And
which
that's
will-
already pretty much agreed to prior to.
Well, it's agreed to, it's discussed, but
It's
until
discussed,
you
but
have.
but you already have been recommended on what you need to do, You don't come up there and start getting out your calculator, here, let me calculate, what should this be? That's what I'm talking about.
Well, you have
I'm just talking about
financial.
being prepared.
You have financial advisors that also are present during that process. So it's like whether people are prepared or no, or at the last minute want to add something, a compensation package like what we saw. That's just examples of not operating very well as a administrative team, council. We can all do better, and that's what we need to do. But to force somebody to read it,
But
know.
I'm just saying. To keep it from coming when it's presented before the public. The
Right.
public can talk about, and then you can go back and amend things and stuff. But, I don't think
But if you're-
all these umpteen different things be added to the budget.
But if you're
at that
having a hearing,
meeting.
the purpose of a hearing is to hear.
To hear.
And if you're not going to listen and take the input.
Right, and then you
to
go
make-
back and you discuss it, you discuss it there, and then you can amend the budget.
But
Well,
this
you
is all
discuss
on,
what the public brings forward,
Not
not
what
what
you-
the council is
Yeah.
now trying to change.
and this
Not
is
because
all,
the
we're,
public asked for it.
we're assuming that these folks are doing this in good faith.
Yeah.
Right? And not just going along with the process until you get to the council meeting and then throwing a wrench in it.
Well, and it says the city manager shall prepare the budget annually. So that prepared budget that they finalize to bring to the council should be what everyone has agreed to. It shouldn't be that the city manager or anyone, after they've agreed, adds anything and then brings something that's a surprise to the public.
In good faith, right, yeah. So Marilyn, I guess to answer that question, I don't know. How do you do that?
Because you're assuming when they had the workshop, the budget workshop, and all the discussions, that everybody was on board.
I guess you would just bring at that meeting what the city manager prepared. So this is what will be, discussed, and then when the public hears it, whatever, then they can discuss it, and if it needs to be amended, then it gets amended from there, after the public
I
hearing.
mean, they should have modified, you think about budget process, everybody has their wish list of what they'd like to have, but they also know what the revenue is going to generate based upon the appraisals that go out end of April, 1st of May, and then the certified values, tax rolls come out mid-July, before 1 August. So they know what their finances are going to be. But,
But when you I'm a numbers person. And so when I start hearing numbers thrown around and they're not correct numbers, or they're not added correctly, or they're not, there's no consistency, I go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. You guys are not, this isn't the right calculation. And you have other people, professional people out there, or engineers or accountants. It's not a good look. And so I'm just saying that I don't think there should be discussion like that among the council. Does that make sense?
I don't know enough about the state process. Is there a way to take public input without having an open hearing? Can we like get it on the internet and have you guys collect it, then have your little workshop at that point?
I mean, you can solicit input from your community through various means. I mean, you could have an online forum, but when you have a public hearing, it's not the public hearing is to hear. It's not actually to respond to, yeah. It's
so
like public forum when you have a city council meeting.
Okay, that's true.
You're receiving the information and processing it in the moment. And
I don't think it's at that point, when you're presenting it, that's not the point that the council's supposed to be up here debating it.
correct.
You know, that's what I'm saying. That was done beforehand.
And it's going to continue because the meeting is a hearing, and typically council boards will close the hearing, and then they move into the next agenda item, which is to adopt the budget.
Right, and so really, if you think about it, during the public hearing, say the budget comes and it's, solid as far as what all the participants agreed upon, and that's what's being presented to the public. Now the public comes in and sees something and they question it, right? I think those are fair things to be debated then when there's discussion with the council, because that's new insight of public opinion at the public hearing.
Right,
That's a different thing.
and that's what for the public hearing is for.
Right. And then they can decide if the budget should be changed based on that discussion, I assume.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the majority of times, 99 times out of 100, there's going to be no issues. And like I said, it's not the first time you've seen it. But this also gives latitude to the council if there's something that comes up at the hearing, then they can make adjustments to it. And then, they'll go back and then, like you said.
Matt, I had another question, and this is just for my own education, and maybe Katrina knows. But under tax levies and tax collections, Hazlet also has many neighborhoods with PIDs. I don't think they're considered taxes. So do we have to specifically address that in?
No, we're only,
We're administering that.
no, we're just the we collect them.
Right,
We don't administer it. But we do approve it every year.
right.
So,
And
by
what
whoever
they are
administers.
by lot.
Yeah.
We
So
look at
I-
all them in lots.
Yeah, I have gone through,
I'm
all
just
the
asking-
residents and the PIDs and who paid and who didn't pay and how much and if there was no overcharge and all that. And so, yes, but the city they only collect it, they're the go-between. They
So the
don't,
city collects about $8,600 per PID annually for managing it, is what the PID agreements, if you read through them.
yeah.
So that's and there's, Katrina, is there 8 or 9 PIDs?
I'm just asking if we have to specifically call that out because it's not listed here
It's
as
just,
something.
it's part of the budgetary process.
Yeah, it's just a budgetary for the cost
Okay,
to do that.
so we don't
no-
need to call it out separately.
No, we don't have anything other than that to do with the PIDs. I know you would like to and let people know that the city doesn't have
get
any.
the money.
Doesn't get the money. Yes, you could put, the city does not get the money for the PID.
Well, Mike,
And there's
explain
some
what you
people
just
don't even
said.
know they have a PID.
Yeah.
So when each of the PIDs were approved, the developers came and and it's basically a proposal for infrastructure expenses. And as I recall from looking at it, the PIDs, because I looked through all of them that we have, from Regal Ridge, which was the first one, which is the Vines now, to North Glen, to Caraway, to La Terra. And it's interesting because each of those people who buy a home in there, they bought their home at the value of what it was sold to them as. They pay taxes just like you and I do. But on top of that, they are paying anywhere from $24,000 to about $40,000 over the course of the 30 years if they choose to pay it out annually. They also pay 6% interest.
Interest.
If they don't pay it all, they have the option to pay it all up front, or they could put $10,000, $15,000 down, which many people, I don't know many, but there are several that have done so. And then it's very interesting, but and the PIDs, how they're set up and what the funds, it's water, road, sewer, lighting. It could be common areas. It just depends upon what they identified as infrastructure.
Over the life of that note, the city collects $8,600 per PID.
Not per person, per PID. Yeah. And it's per
So
neighborhood,
We're
yeah.
talking pennies.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we break it
Yeah,
down.
it's very nominal.
And somebody
It's
is responsible
administrative.
for it.
I was just asking if we had to address it.
See what you
And
did?
then, if you sell your house, just like Northland, we have a PID. So if I was to sell our house, that PID goes to the new buyer. Right. And believe it or not, there are people who don't know they have a PID.
And
My neighbor
I think-
questioned, she was like, what? I just found out we had a PID. I was like, how did you not know when
And
you
the
signed
PIDs
the
were
paperwork with the realtor? And she's like, it was just kind of skipped over.
And the PIDs were sold because, well, you're getting all of this and you're getting a lower price for your property because, this is helping to pay the infrastructure. So your lot price should be lower. But that's not necessarily true. It's not. And
value.
so because you're paying that, then because you're paying for part of the infrastructure, then you're getting a discount maybe on your lot, but that's not the case.
I didn't see a discount on our lot. Did you see?
But
Well, I think,
But we
And,
don't,
and we have nothing in Northland for
If
our
that-
PID. We
We
don't have
don't-
a community pool, we don't have a playground, we don't have a park, we have
do you have lights?
nothing.
Do you have lights in streets? No.
Because you guys came before the PID, Ashmore and the Meadows.
The
came.
developer
Our
paid the
developer
infrastructure
paid- our developer
cost.
paid
At Bell
for the
Grand too,
infrastructure.
they don't have a PID.
This is a deal between city council
And
and the
developer.
developers and previous administration going back to 2016.
one way that I heard it explained, if the developer has a $20,000, a $200,000 lot, well, he can sell it to a developer for $200,000, or he can sell it to him for $170 and put a $30,000 bid on it. Same price, except for the interest.
For the buyer.
Yeah, if you pay it up front, it's basically the same price. But regardless of what your interest rate is on your house, the bid's still 6%.
Yeah, that's the difference.
And it's I'm not under one, but I don't like them at all because it's deceptive. They insert those things at the bottom of a contract on the day that somebody's gone to buy a house, they're worn out. And I ran distributing in one of the communities recently, I ran across a couple, they did not know that they had a PID in Watercress.
Well, I think the misperception is that the city is collecting an extra tax.
Yes.
But
yeah.
I really just wanted to know if we had to include it
Yeah.
in any way.
And so we'll let
Sorry.
that continue.
Yeah, sorry, man.
No problem. All right, we're at, we do 7. We had, see, after the public hearing, the city council analyze the budget, make any additions, deletions, which they feel appropriate. It shall, prior to the beginning of the next fiscal year, adopt the budget by affirmative vote of the majority of full membership of the council. Should the, and this is what we're talking about, should the city council make no action prior to such day, the current budget shall be enforced on a month-to-month basis until the new budget is adopted. It's kind of, it just as our, like a 1-month CR every single time until they, but they, and again, still the limitation that they can't do anything else. So, Section 8, budget appropriation and the amount to be raised by taxation. On final adoption, the budget shall be in effect for the budget year. Final adoption of the budget by the city council shall constitute the official appropriation as possessed by expenditures for the current year and shall constitute the basis for official levy of the property taxes as the amount of tax to be assessed and collected for the corresponding tax year. Unused appropriations may be transferred to an item required for the same general purpose. You have flexibility for infrastructure. Transfer appropriations during the fiscal year, the city council shall have the power to transfer funds allocated the budget from one activity, function, or department to another activity, function, or department, and to reestimate revenues and expenditures. Give flexibility in the budget. Amending the budget under conditions which may arise and which could not reasonably have been foreseen in the normal process of planning the budget, the city council may, or by the affirmative vote of the majority of the full membership of the council, amend or change the budget to provide for any additional expenses in which the general welfare of the citizenry is involved. This amendment shall be by ordinance and shall become an attachment to the original budget.
So this is not allowing them to spend or to tax more, just to spend the money differently, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, this would only allow, they would have to go through the budget process to get more.
You might amend the budget. You might amend the budget like if a tornado came through.
Correct.
Right.
And took this building out, and
Correct.
you had expenses that were unexpected, that would require that you go into the fund balance and amend the budget.
Right. Yes, that's a great example. But then, let's say it takes $3 million to rebuild this. Where's the $3 million come from? Well, we got to figure it out. It's not, in theory, not going to raise our property taxes. So, by the way, here's an extra little check.
I think that's why there's a contingency fund in the budget.
Fair enough.
I do, and I am not a financial person, so I'm going to ask probably a dumb question, but when you have unspent funds from one year to the next, how does that get carried over into the budget? Is that under Section 8?
No, so those
it
funds
doesn't.
that are unspent from one year to another typically go into a fund balance, which is Katrina, what is our fund balance approximately? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it does carry over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't roll into the next budget cycle. It goes into basically a savings account. It's a
You have to have
specified
ability
account.
to adjust contracts. So if you have remaining money from the previous year, if you have a contract from that year that has to be adjusted, you have funds to do that with. So it's the same fiscal year.
So is it listed kind of in the budget?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. That's
yeah.
details I
Yeah.
don't need to know. I just didn't know if it had to be called out in any way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And we talked about closing appropriations here as well.
Okay.
So it's section 11, this is where we talked about certification copies. So a copy of the budget as finally adopted shall be filed with the city secretary and such other places required by state law, and as the city council shall designate. The final budget shall be printed or otherwise reproduced in sufficient copies and shall be made available for the use of all offices, agencies, and for the use of any Hazlet resident or business owner. Copies shall be made available to any other interested persons or civic organization at a nominal cost to cover the city's administrative cost to produce as set by the city council. So people who live in Hazlet, own businesses in Hazlet, they get free access to the copies of the budget. Everybody else has to pay for the expenses if they want to get a copy of it.
But if it's posted online, wouldn't that, yeah, it's on the
Yeah, yeah,
website.
yeah.
So you wouldn't have to do that. That would eliminate that.
Right, well, not everybody likes to use the
So they could get
internet.
copies.
Yeah, they could ask for a certified copy or,
They might,
yeah.
And that may be something we want to modify, that
Yeah.
there's a online copy.
Online,
If you
because-
anybody who requests a paper copy,
it's directed,
possibly,
yeah.
that's something
We
we
can
can
have
look
paper
at.
copy, yeah.
There's a copy available at City Hall for public viewing.
Okay.
So question, so in section 8.05, public record, the budget is filed with the city secretary, submitted to the city council, and a public record is made available, right? is that before, like, is that the draft?
That's
Budget?
that's the adopted.
Okay, so it's just public, I guess for me, it's a weird order.
I think, yeah.
I would think it would be after, the certification point. That's,
Yes.
I'm just thinking sequential order here, that's all.
But, yeah, it'll propose. I mean, you have the opportunity to see the proposed during the workshop. You can come and get a sit down and
So is
walk
that
through, look at the
filed?
proposed.
Is that filed with the city secretary?
Yes, and it's also posted on the
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the proposed budget. So maybe in section .05, that would be the proposed budget. Because it's before the public hearing.
Be filed with the city secretary and submitted to the city council.
So if it says
The budget
proposed, it would
shall
make
be
more sense
public
to me.
record, and a copy of the budget shall be made available to any person. I don't see the problem.
Well, if it said proposed, I would think then it made more sense.
This is talking about public record.
Yeah.
And so-
I don't think
Okay,
there's a
it doesn't
problem.
matter.
Right.
So it could be public record multiple times.
Yeah, because we're just
Got
stating there's the statutory requirements for public records.
Okay,
And so we're just making a
I
statement.
guess
in
I'm
that-
trying to think
yeah.
too.
And then, section 12 is, covers a defect shall not invalidate the tax levy. So errors or defects in the form or preparation of the budget or failure to perform any procedural requirement shall not nullify the tax levy or tax rate. So if there's mistakes in the budget, it doesn't give people a reason to not pay their taxes.
And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, sir, the tax rate is voted on by the citizens.
No, city council.
City council, yeah.
Well, they can propose it, but
And-
doesn't it
and-
have to be
No,
approved?
it
City
can
council.
raise up to a certain point, but after a certain
Yeah.
point, then it has to go before the, for a vote. After we're working on legislative stuff, the legislature wants to really minimize that amount that the city is available to raise it without voter approval.
So there's
So-
a rollback. What you're kind of referencing is if you exceed the allowable increase, then there is a rollback. You can call for a rollback election to roll the taxes back to the previous year. Yeah, which is not good typically.
But there have been, I mean, it's documented over the past couple of years, throughout the state of Texas, a lot of city councils just under that threshold so that it doesn't have to go to public ballot, to Joel's question,
So why do you think that's the case?
so that it doesn't go to ballot.
Yeah. there's
And
an
I'm
increase.
saying in this legislative session, they had a bill proposed to bring that
Yes.
threshold down.
Yes.
And the bill was for 150,000 residents over, but the representatives, the House, wanted it for all municipalities, and so they had a conflict till the very last day that it was in session, and it ended up not passing. Senate wanted over 150, the House wanted everybody, all the municipalities. So that would have lowered the threshold.
Yes.
And cost us money.
Yes.
Okay, and then this is where we talk about the unspent money.
Okay.
Section 813, closing appropriation. Every appropriation, except an appropriation for a capital expenditure, shall be deemed closed at the end of the fiscal year or to the extent that it has not been expended or obligated. An appropriation for a capital expenditure shall continue in force until the purpose for which it had been made and been accomplished or abandoned. For the purpose of such appropriation shall be deemed abandoned if 3 years pass without any disbursement from or encumbrance of the appropriation. Any funds not expended, dispersed, or encumbered shall be deemed excess funds.
Okay, thank you.
Borrowing, so the city shall have the power to borrow money on the credit of the city and to issue or incur bonds or other evidence of indebtedness to finance public improvements or any other public purpose not prohibited by the Constitution and the laws of the state of Texas, and to issue refund bonds to refund outstanding bonds or other evidences of indebtedness the city previously issued. All such bonds or other evidence of indebtedness shall be issued in conformity with the laws of the state of Texas and may be secured by or paid in whole or in part from ad valorem tax revenues, revenues derived from other taxing powers of the city, revenues derived by the city from any fee or service charge, including revenues derived from operation of public utilities, utility systems, recreation facilities, or any other municipal function to the extent not prohibited by the Constitution and the laws of the state of Texas. Such bond or evidence of indebtedness may be a charge upon the payment and charge upon and payment from the properties or interest therein pledged or the income therefrom, or both to the extent not prohibited by the Constitution or laws of the state of Texas. The proceeds of bonds or other evidence of indebtedness issued or incurred by the city shall be used only for the purpose for which the bonds or other indebtedness was issued or incurred. Any indebtedness that impacts the full faith and credit of the city must be approved by a majority of the voters in a proposed referendum.
Question to that point, I get the part about the voters have to approve if the bond affects the credit or the full faith of the city. Are there some bonds that can be issued without it going to public ballot?
I believe.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. Okay, in the past, yes, we have, there are some, it depends on what they're for and how much they are. So there's a minimum that you could go under maybe. I think that's going to be changing. And I think everything's going to have to go, any kind of bond, any increase in taxes at all, and a bond would be an increase in your taxes, would have to go before the voters.
But what if it stayed under that threshold?
I mean, the Constitution, when you look at bond elections, and that's a big part of that's what I did have done for the last 11 years, is, I mean, you have to call a bond election, which is typically 85 days before the November or the May election date, and there's certain bond criteria. There's criteria about what you can call a bond for, what you can't, and it spells it out. So.
Yeah, what was it? We didn't call it a bond when we got the 17 million. It wasn't a bond. It was a certificate.
Really?
No.
Of obligation?
Of obligation. There were certificate of obligations. So you couldn't call it a bond. That's got to go before. So we would pass like the 17 million certificate of obligation, which increases your taxes also. And so a lot of cities have gotten out of control on that. And so the state's wanting to clamp down on that and make things bond go before. And they really would like to do away with those. But it hurts small cities. But the state would like to do away with those and everything be bond, go for vote. That's the direction it's going. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All right, purchasing, the city council may by ordinance give the city manager general authority to contract for expenditures without further approval from the city council for all budgeted items not to exceed limits set by the city council within the ordinance. All contracts for expenditures or purchases involving more than the limits must be expressly approved in advance by the city council. All contracts for purchases involving more than the limits set by the city council shall be awarded by the city council in accordance with state law. Emergency contracts may be authorized by law, and this charter may be negated by the city council or city manager if given the authority by the city council without competitive bid in accordance with state law. Such emergency shall be declared by the city manager and approved by the city council, or may be declared by the city council. So emergency situations. Depository, all monies received from any person, department, or agency for the city or in connection with the affairs of the city shall be deposited promptly in the city depository or depositories. The city depository shall be designated by the city council in accordance with such regulations and subject to the requirements as securities for deposit and interest thereon as may be established by ordinance and law. Procedures for withdrawal of money or the disbursement of funds from the city depositories shall be prescribed by ordinance. Independent audit at the close of each fiscal year and at such other times as may be necessary, the city council shall call for an independent audit to be made of all accounts of the city by a certified public accountant. The certified public accountant selected shall have no direct or indirect personal interests in the financial affairs of the city or any of its officers. The report of audit with the auditor's recommendations will be made to the city council in a public hearing. Copies of the completed audit shall be placed on file in the city, in the office of the city secretary, and shall be a public record. That's one of those we thought was real important, making sure that we spelled out that it can't be anybody who's related to anybody, who knows anybody who lives in Hazlet to do the audit. So there's, completely unbiased.
Right.
The power to tax, the city shall have the power to levy, assess, and collect taxes from every character and type for any municipal purpose not prohibited by the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas as amended. The city shall have the power to grant tax exemptions in accordance with the laws of the state of Texas. The office of...
Who's the city? Is the city council, the governing body?
Right.
And I have a question back at 15. It said the emergency part will be declared by the city manager, but we talked about emergency declaration earlier.
Well, this
is a mayor. So it's, like you said, this is dependent on which type of
Yeah,
government we
right,
choose. So
right.
that
That
some of
roles will
this
change.
lingo may change when
Yeah.
we decide
Right.
the one of four that we're going with. Okay.
Also, if you go back to 8.16 depository.
Yeah.
Because of some of the stuff, once again, the legislature has been talking about when it comes to where the money goes from the cities, you might want to put in there, like you did in 818, as by the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas.
Okay.
Also. Because they'll change things. And so then that's going to, you'd have to amend that.
Where should we put that in, do you think?
That is in 8.16.
At the very end.
Yeah.
where it says
Okay.
prescribed by ordinance and according to the state constitution.
So Joanne, to your question, who is the city?
Well, that's, yeah.
Does that kind of depend on the government?
Yeah.
Well, I would think it would be the city council as the legislative body would decide on giving tax exemptions.
You could just say governing body.
Yeah. What kind of government we're gonna have though?
How were they given in the past? Does anybody know? There were exemptions given to, from what I know, Amazon.
Oh, no.
Was that something the council did? So the council had the authority to do that? Okay.
And the current.
They would have to approve the contract.
They'd have, so but the council was the one that approved the contract.
The council has to approve all contracts.
So I guess it would be council.
Right, I think, actually, I think it's more accurate to say that the council has the authority through the budget process. So they can't just independently, outside of the budget process, levy taxes or make agreements. So it's got to be, that's why it's general as the city. So it's through, I don't know if we need to spell it out, the city council through the budgetary process. Okay.
I guess it's an interesting place that this is here. Again, I'm not a financial person. It just, because if that goes under contracts, that could be at a different time of the budget, because you might not know what kind of thing businesses or whatever might come forward during the course of a year. I'm just trying to, I guess this is under the power to tax.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it's fine the way it is. It just seemed ambiguous to me.
So we're ready to move on, or you want, okay. So the Office of the Tax Collector, there shall be an Office of Taxation to collect taxes, the head of which shall be the city tax collector. The city council may contract such services.
How do we do that now?
Contracted through Tarrant County Tax Office.
the county that doesn't have a city.
Will we contract, we pay the county to do that for us?
Correct.
So
Okay.
should that say county? Instead of city?
Well, as it's written, we could have a city tax collector if we
Right.
chose not to contract it.
It spells out that the council may contract the services out,
Yeah.
which is what we've done.
Yeah.
It may, yeah, may come a time when they don't want to do that.
I think it's fine, yeah. Got it.
And we're on to section 8-20, taxes when due and payable. I know this is riveting, isn't it?
Yes. It's gotta be done though. You gotta
Yeah.
do it.
So all taxes due to the city shall be payable at the office of the city tax collector or such location or locations as may be designated by the city council and may be paid at any time after the tax rolls for the year have been completed and approved. Taxes for each year shall be paid before February 1 of the next succeeding year, and all such taxes not paid prior to that date shall be deemed delinquent and shall be subject to penalty and interest as the city council shall provide in ordinance. The city council may provide discounts for the payment of taxes prior to January 1 in the amount not to exceed those established by laws of the state of Texas. Failure to levy and assess taxes through omission in preparing the appraisal rolls shall not relieve the person, firm, or corporation so omitted from the obligation to pay such current or past due taxes as shown to be payable by recheck of the rolls and receipts for the years in question, omitting penalties and interest.
A quick question, do we offer that discount now?
Tarrant County Tax Office, whatever they mail you, that's, how they give you dates to pay it by.
Yeah,
We contract that service to them.
so that's already in play, okay.
And the last section for us, tax liens, liabilities, and suits. All taxable property located in the city on January 1 of each year shall stand charged from that date with a special lien in favor of the city for all taxes due. This person purchasing any such property on or after January 1 in any year shall take on the property subject to the liens provided above. In addition to the liens herein provided on January 1 of any year, the owner of property subject to taxation by the city shall be personally liable for the taxes due for that year. And the city shall have the power to sue for and recover personal judgment for taxes without foreclosure, or to foreclose its lien or liens, or to recover both personal judgment and foreclosure if any such suit where it appears that the description of any property in the city appraisal rolls is insufficient to identify such property, the city shall have the right to plead a good description of the property to be assessed to prove the same, and to have its judgment foreclosing the tax lien or for personal judgment against the owner for such taxes. So that's finances and taxes.
Can we go back to number 1 under whatever, I guess it's 8.20. Maybe it's the way I'm reading this, but it seems weird to me. So it says, may be paid at any time after the tax rolls for the year have been completed and approved. Taxes for each year shall be paid before February 1st of the next succeeding year.
Right.
And all such taxes not paid prior to that date shall be deemed delinquent.
That's right.
So so 2025 taxes were due 1 February 26.
Right,
So if you
okay.
didn't pay by 1 February 26, you were delinquent.
Not paid prior to that date. Okay,
Yeah.
not paid, I got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no problem.
Legalese.
It takes a little bit for the.
Okay, are there any questions about this or any further comments on it?
You guys can all digest this over the next couple of weeks.
We'll digest it. Okay.
I'm glad I wasn't
All right,
on that
so
committee.
We
I
also
am
still
not
had the initiative referendum. Do you just want to make a comment about it? You have a document, but it's 9:30. We've been at this 2.5 hours, and I know your partner. Do you want to speak, or do you want to continue?
You guys can just read, but what
Want to highlight something?
what I did was I included a map. These have all the states who has recall.
Okay.
As you can see, Texas does. We have recall provisions. But basically, this is just a draft for the city of Hazlet, the different steps for power of the recall, petition requirements, presentation, public hearing, the days that you have to, whoever's being recalled, they have so many days to put in a petition. And then if there's an election, let me see, I'm just trying to skip. If an officer is removed for a recall, they're not eligible for appointment within the city for 2 years. So, they can't get recalled, get removed, and then come back again. They gotta wait. Basically, just the initiative, reprimand powers for Hazlet, 15% of the registered voters.
I like the 7.021, the 20% of the number of votes or 250 registered voters, whichever is greater.
Yes. And that is the key to registered
Yeah.
voters.
That's very interesting. Because we don't even sometimes have 250 people who vote.
But we have
We
that
have
many
registered
registered
voters,
voters, yes.
right, so-
But to get 20% of the vote, you got 20 people. So that would make, or, 40, 50 people couldn't control a recall.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So that would be a good thing, having the 250, a petition.
Exactly.
So we don't, never mind.
Okay.
Patricia, what is the average cost, if you know, of a recall election?
If you do an average cost of recall election, hold on one second.
I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be around $5,000 because you're paying for the ballots, you're paying for the people who run the elections. I think, Katrina, do you know what elections run us? What's it costing us right now for city council elections?
I can answer. Okay, so basically, we're looking at a range anywhere from $25,000 for a small charter city to $75,000 or higher.
Damn.
Seems high.
We're under 25?
And the taxpayers generally bear the cost of the recall.
The taxpayers or the city?
The city, these taxpayers bears the cost of holding the recall.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep,
Okay, so the onus, if the citizens petition for a recall, the onus is on the city to pay for
For the
the
election.
recall.
taxpayers, yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, you know, your recall is basically going to be encompassing misconduct, malfeasance, corruption, intoxication in an office. You know,
And
those are.
they refuse to step down or whatever.
Yes.
I like that that it has to also be 45 days from the date the first signature was affixed. So this can't just be, you know, out there forever.
Right, no. There, once the signature is done, you have so many days. So, you know, you can't push it off for 6 months or a year, or anything like that.
How did y'all come up, was the 250 registered voters, was that what was in the other examples from neighboring, or?
We took examples, had 10 things opened. We had Justin, we had Roanoke, we had Keller, Terry had, I can't remember what he had open too. We were just kind of pulling different cities.
Is it maybe a percentage of the registered voters in
Well,
the
it is,
city?
it's 20%
20%
or but a minimum.
Of
Right.
200, but is the 250 number taken from a percentage of the registered voters?
Well, you said whichever is greater.
Whichever's greater.
No. How did you come up with the 250? So I'm saying, is that a percentage, is 250 a percentage of the registered voters?
250, hold on.
Which would be, you know, if you have 500 registered voters, then that's a 50%, you know? So is it like a 20% of the registered voters?
It's
in Hazlet?
20% of the registered voters, or at least a minimum of 250, so.
No, it's
I think the
20%, no,
difference
it's
is the vote
20% of the
cast.
registered voters, the people that voted in the last election.
Right, in the
Or
last election.
250. So I'm saying, how did we come up, I understand that 20% of who voted. How did we come up with the 250 people?
I think we pulled, Carrie pulled this from Justin, and he's got here a floor of 250 ensures a recall represents significant community movement.
So we have 10, so if we get up to 10,000 residents, so 250 would be a good representation of the 10,000 population. Is that what?
Residents
Well,
include children,
yeah, but-
yeah.
Again,
Okay.
it's of the people who voted in the previous election, of registered voters.
Is it not state statute that defines
Means-
that number?
So if you look on the back of the second page, it says why this works for Hazlet.
I haven't got there yet.
Sorry, I know you, I'm just, I think this is a question some people would ask. It kind of explains how that 250, if you had a town, 10,000, 30% cast would be a small number. If only 400 people vote, 30% is 120. A floor of 250 ensures significant recall representation. And we're also talking about every elected official. We're not just we're talking about council, we're talking about mayor positions. So all positions elected would be subject to a recall, which I think it's awesome.
I agree.
And, I mean, I was just reading and reading till my eyes were crossed, but you can recall every single council member if you want to, or to say 4 out of the 5. So something we have to think about, say 4 of the 5 got recalled and they went, okay, we're out of here. Now there's only 1 council member left. Do we decide if that 1 council member is the quorum? No, some cities, yes. That 1 council member is the quorum.
I vote against that.
And then some are, no,
choice sometimes.
we need to vote, we need to elect 3 more to be a quorum.
Well, that's
So
where,
that would be
that's
something-
where how we fill a vacancy becomes pretty important.
Right. There are some cities where that one remaining council member is the quorum.
So we currently have in policy that if we have a council position vacant, Katrina, don't we appoint the council appoints someone to fill
The
that?
mayor does.
The mayor appoints till the next
The mayor
scheduled election.
appoints. The mayor appoints.
So they would,
So that's the answer.
yeah.
But you could write it any way you want it.
That's something we would have to think about too. Also,
You wouldn't want everybody to be on the same cycle too. You wouldn't want to
Right.
have
Exactly.
4 on the turnover. So you would, typically, they do a drawing where if you have 4 vacancies, somebody's going to draw a 2-year term and somebody's going to draw a 1-year term to stagger it.
Makes sense.
but you had asked about the cost.
You guys are spending about, 7,000 or less average on elections each year.
7,000.
Would that change though if we had
A
twice as
special
many people?
election.
If we had what?
Twice as many people?
Right, yeah,
It would be higher?
I think so.
Have we ever had a special election?
Yes, about every 4 years, a special election is included for the EDC tax rates.
Wouldn't we, if somebody's removed from, by recall, and somebody is put in to replace them, don't they just continue that term?
That's what I
They
think.
would just continue that
That's what I
term.
think we would have to
Yeah.
put in, we would have to define
That
that
way it
in
doesn't
how we
mess up
fill
the cycle.
vacancies.
Yeah,
Right.
I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There was something too that I wanted to bring up because I was kind of just in shock when I read that. But we had talked about districts. If we decided to go with districts, if there's a recall for a petition to remove a council member, recall is done from that council member's district only.
What if there ain't 45 people? Or the number required to have a recall?
Well, you'd have to
It
do a
has to-
percentage of registered voters.
Right, so I'm gonna read you this. A recall petition for removal of a council member would have to be signed by qualified voters of the territory from which the council member is elected. And that would be qualified voters from that council member's single-member district. The minimum number of ballot signatures to recall a council member would be at least 10% of the qualified voters from that council member's district.
So if we do districts, does that increase the cost for our elections? Because now they've got to take mine address and know who I'm voting for, which place, and yours and yours. Does that change? Does that make it more expensive?
I don't think so.
I think it does.
Significantly.
Minimally, but.
Anytime you go from simple to complex, there's an increased cost.
It's just in the printing of the ballot.
So, just like the incident that happened today
Yeah.
at the polls, there were some folks from Laterra that couldn't vote.
Right.
Because
It
the
was showing-
information from that neighborhood, those streets, wasn't passed to the election committee. So if that,
Would you explain that again? Say that again?
the information of the people in that area that were told they couldn't vote, because they were told they could vote in a different district. They're actually in Hazlet.
So Tarrant County didn't have the right information.
That's right.
It's been corrected now.
Corrected it.
Yes. So now
So-
those people can go back to vote.
So as long as everybody's got all the proper information, it should be easy.
Right.
And then, when I continue on with the districts, if the mayor is recalled, that would be 10% of the qualified voters of the city. Again, registered voters. Everything is registered voters.
Mayor being at large, elected at large.
Right.
But that's registered voters of people that voted in the previous election.
No, that's registered voters. This is for the mayor. The mayor got recalled. That would be 10% of the qualified voters of the whole city. Where again, as council member, if we go with the district, it's only that district.
Thanks.
And
That's
what's the
appropriate.
succession? What would be the succession of that position?
Then again, that district,
Well,
no, that district now,
for mayor, because he represents all the districts. He is not elected as a representative of a district or a single, his neighborhood district.
that would be then where the mayor pro tem is going to step in until we have,
Yeah, until,
An
yeah,
election
and
of a new
depending,
mayor.
if it's less than a year, there's more than a year, I think, then you would have to have an election. But if it's less than a mayor pro tem can step in.
Again, I think we define that in our
Definitely.
election information.
yes. And a lot of the cities, they have down there that, okay, find it. You can't do a recall for a council member within like the 6 months after they just got on.
Right.
You gotta give them that 6 months time. And then you can't do a recall if their term is up in 6 months.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So just let them finish out the term.
Yeah, but what if they did something egregious?
Now, they did something egregious, yes, you know, where, like, you know, they committed a crime, a felony or whatever, then yes, that's automatic. That's what I found in everything I read, that a conviction of an officer for a felony or misdemeanor involving official misconduct is automatic removal.
Without a recall election.
It's automatic removal.
Let's say this money, if they're gonna do something bad, go ahead.
Do it really bad.
Right, yeah. If they made that stupid decision, then yes.
So that's great information. Is there anything else you want to add, Patricia?
Nope. I think
Anybody
that's
else
it.
a question
Do you have
for
any
her? Do we want to
questions?
revisit this? Look at it. If we have questions, we'll just revisit each topic, you know, the
No, but
next time.
I will say to Mike's earlier point about what did you take away from this was good information.
Yeah, I
I learned something here.
Thanks. It was a lot.
Yeah.
My eyes were
Oh,
crossing. I was
yeah.
like, I gotta quit.
Because we looked at it. We knew it was lots
That's why
of,
we
we need to
thought
get
we
this to
weren't
somebody
including it
else.
under elections.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next is the community outreach, Marty, and I think
So,
you've got a packet there
We
too to
do,
look
and
at.
Madam Vice Chair, depending on what you and the commission members want to do, we can continue to the next meeting if you like, in the interest of time, or if you want us to roll.
All right,
We can continue, no worries.
okay. Okay, so we'll continue that. So moving, we'll table that. I do want to bring, should we set up any other subcommittees on anything?
I think we got our hands full.
We got our hands full right now? Okay.
This is what we got, yeah.
All right, so then moving on to the action items, we have no action to be taken tonight. I don't think we're at the point of 6A, adopting content on the Home Rule Charter, or 6B, the Home Rule Charter table contents. So are there anything, the next meeting? We do have on the calendar, and May the 6th. Do you want to meet May the 6th or not? And then May 27th? You'll be out of town?
I think we need to keep the momentum going, is my personal opinion, if we
Right.
can.
That's what at the last meeting we had decided, but it was tentative and we were going to make a final decision. We wanted to get on the calendar. So,
I'll be available.
thumbs
say what
up
day
for
again?
May, thumbs up for May the,
Are we okay for that date,
May the
Katrina?
6th. Yeah, she's our,
May 6th I have on the calendar, you're
Yeah.
good to go. The only thing I want to mention is these drafts of this work, if you want me to include them in the packet, you've only got about a week to get them.
yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, can't we just keep what we have and as our notes and bring it with our own information rather than have you have to do work?
If you want to disseminate copies, or like you said, you had updated some things and you want me to include it in the packet, then I've got to have
think
it back
what we
on
have-
29th of April. This is all Halloween.
I think we're doing so much discussion that, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think to
So-
make you go to the effort of updating a bunch of stuff, which we'll probably update again.
Right. So
Seems
May,
like too much
everybody,
work.
we're good for May the 6th?
Yes.
All right. So then May the 6th, is there anything for future agenda items that you want, other than what we already have? We'll just continue that? All right. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the cookies.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
We're on 2 miles now.